Getting lean is hard, and staying lean is even harder. A 2001 meta-analysis found that 5 years after a diet, the average person regains nearly 80% of the lost weight. Online, the confusion's endless. People chase hacks, follow conflicting advice, and miss the fundamentals. In this video, I'll cut through the noise and use the latest science to show you how to get lean and stay that way. Before diving into strategy, let's clarify one thing. All successful fat loss diets work through the same basic principle: eating fewer calories than you burn. That's the foundation. What differs is how you get there. If you do this, your body will need to draw upon its stores of energy to keep fueling you, ideally your fat tissue. We'll divide this video into 4 sections. Let's start with metabolism science. In simple terms, metabolism is your total daily energy burn. How many calories you use just by living, moving, eating, and exercising. Your energy expenditure is made up of 4 factors. First, we have basal metabolic rate, the calories your body burns just to stay alive at rest. Next, we have non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT. Those are the calories you'll burn through any physical movement that isn't intentional exercise. You also burn calories when digesting food, which is why you may feel warmer after a meal. This is called the thermic effect of feeding. Finally, you can obviously burn additional calories by exercising, like performing cardio. We refer to this as exercise activity thermogenesis. There are many claims around metabolism on the internet, so we should go ahead and discuss a few. People often blame a slow metabolism for struggling to lose fat. While that can sound like an excuse, the research is clear. At the same height and weight, 2 people can burn drastically different amounts of energy. In one of the largest studies on human metabolism ever, the researchers sought to chart metabolism across the human lifespan of over 6,000 individuals. The factor that most reliably predicted total energy expenditure was fat-free mass. But at a given body weight, different people could have very different metabolisms. For example, at a body weight of 80 kilograms, the average person burned around 2,600 calories per day. However, at the same weight, it wasn't uncommon for people with a faster metabolism to burn over 3,800 calories. Likewise, at the same weight, some people burned fewer than 1,900 calories. That's why one-size-fits-all calorie targets don't work. At 80 kilograms, 2,000 calories might be a great deficit for one person, but a surplus for another. This variability matters. It isn't all doom and gloom though. Just because you have a slow metabolism doesn't mean you can't lose weight. In fact, that's exactly what a large 2022 study found. The authors concluded that a slow metabolism was not a risk factor for fat gain, nor was a fast metabolism protective against fat gain. A slow metabolism isn't a dead end. With the right strategy, fat loss is still completely possible. You'll see a lot of content online claiming that building muscle will speed up your metabolism like crazy, making fat loss easier. And indeed, the Poncer study did find that fat-free mass was the factor that most closely predicted your total daily energy expenditure. There's some truth to the idea that building muscle speeds up your metabolism, but the full picture is more nuanced. On average, a kilogram of fat burns around 4.5 calories per day, while a kilogram of muscle burns around 13 calories per day. That's nearly triple. But that's still relatively modest in the grand scheme of your daily energy expenditure. Here's what often gets overlooked. When we talk about fat-free mass, we're not just talking about muscle. It also includes vital organs, like your brain, liver, heart, and kidneys. And these organs are metabolic powerhouses. For example, your liver and brain burn hundreds of calories per day despite their small size. Some emerging research even suggests that when you gain significant muscle mass, some of your organ mass increases as well, likely due to increased physiological demand. This might explain why the metabolic benefit of gaining muscle is greater than you'd expect from muscle tissue alone. It's not just the muscle, it's the support systems around it ramping up as well. Even after gaining 15 kilograms of fat-free mass, your metabolism might only increase by around 270 calories per day. It's helpful, but it's not magic. Most fat-burning hacks like green tea or vinegar are also negligible. We're talking 5 calories a day, if at all. Finally, increasing the thermic effect of feeding is also challenging. There are a couple of strategies you can use to achieve this, which we'll keep for the nutrition part of this video. Let's move on to the 2 most impactful ways we can improve our metabolism. Physical activity. Lifting weights doesn't actually burn that many calories. Even a hard leg day may only burn between 200 to maximum 500 calories or so. Cardio, on the other hand, can give you a relatively low fatigue way to boost your calorie burn. The best forms of cardio will be the ones that you enjoy doing or the ones that wear you out the least. I really enjoy playing basketball, but fatigue-wise, basketball isn't great. You would ideally want something with low impact and few eccentric contractions, where your muscle is lengthening under load. Ideal low fatigue options include incline walking, the elliptical, rowing, or cycling. Anything sustainable and repeatable. After my workouts, I'll sneak in an extra 30 minutes of cardio, aiming to keep intensity reasonable. You should be able to hold a conversation at any time with no difficulty. But that's only part of the puzzle. The most meaningful way to boost your metabolism and your health is non-exercise activity, or NEAT. Going from a sedentary lifestyle, where you spend all day sitting, to a more physically active one will turbocharge your metabolism and health. Look for ways to naturally fit more movement into your day. Instead of driving to the gym, walk. Instead of ordering groceries, walk to the grocery store. Instead of calling your friend while sitting on the couch, go for a walk. NEAT, your everyday movement, is one of the most underrated fat loss tools. Walk more, stand more, do more. It all adds up. You don't need to walk. Cycling to work, gardening, or even doing some chores all count. The magic of non-exercise physical activity is that it doesn't fatigue you that much compared to more intense exercise, preserving more energy for your workouts in the gym. This won't only help with fat loss. A ton of research also suggests it'll improve your health. If you'd like more ideas, just check out this huge list of activities and figure out what you could incorporate into your routine to speed up fat loss. Now, there's one thing I haven't mentioned. Speeding up your metabolism through physical activity does work, but that doesn't mean you should just skyrocket your activity. A paradigm-shifting 2016 study suggested that a more moderate approach could work best. Your body inherently wants to stay at your current weight. This is called homeostatic pressure. For example, if you start doing 20,000 steps a day, you may subconsciously start fidgeting less, reducing the net effect on energy expenditure. As a result, you likely get diminishing returns on physical activity, especially when your calorie intake is low. That's why my best recommendation for boosting your metabolism is to achieve a calorie deficit through a combination of diet and moderate physical activity. I recommend doing anywhere between 6,000 to 12,000 steps per day. Cardio is more optional, but you can do a few easy 30-minute cardio sessions after workouts. Boosting your metabolism will only take you so far though. In a 2012 study, Foster, Schubert, and colleagues split overweight participants into one of 4 groups: a cardio-only group, a low-calorie diet group, a diet plus cardio group, and a control group. While the participants in the cardio group did lose 2 kilograms, the diet group lost 7.2 kilograms, and the diet plus exercise group lost 8.9 kilograms. The research is clear. You can't out-exercise a bad diet when it comes to fat loss. You know how to boost your metabolism, but how many calories should you eat? This is where many go wrong and crash diet. If you don't eat enough calories, you can get side effects like altered hormone profiles, irritability, increased risk of injury, loss of your period, and even increased muscle loss. This is known as relative energy deficiency. Relative energy deficiency is simply characterized by a low calorie intake relative to your body weight, independently of how physically active you are. This is where the 30-calorie rule comes in. As a rough guide to avoid the side effects of crash dieting, research suggests that you shouldn't be eating fewer than around 30 calories per kilogram of fat-free mass. My own fat-free mass is around 90 kilograms, give or take. This suggests that I should eat no fewer than around 2,700 calories per day to reduce my chances of side effects. If I go lower than this, there's a good chance that I'll risk losing muscle. A 2023 study had trained lifters consume a high-protein diet and perform both lifting and cardio. However, the researchers only fed them 25 calories per kilogram of fat-free mass per day, placing them in a state of relative energy deficiency. Just 10 days of this resulted in reduced muscle protein synthesis, a decent proxy for long-term muscle growth. Now, in rare cases, people may also experience side effects of relative energy deficiency above this 30-calorie threshold. Additionally, for some people and in some circumstances, you'll have to go lower than this 30-calorie threshold. If you're getting very lean for a photo shoot or a physique competition, this could happen. And if it's for a short stint, that's acceptable. Likewise, if you have a very slow metabolism, it's also possible you'll need to do this. Before setting calories below 30 calories per kilogram of fat-free mass, I would personally try boosting my metabolism. The last thing you want to do is end up losing the muscle you gained during your bulk by crash dieting. This naturally leads us to the question: how fast should you lose weight to minimize muscle loss? The best data on the topic is a study by Murphy and colleagues. In their meta-regression, they analyzed all the studies that had participants lift weights, report calorie intakes, and lost weight. They found that around a 500-calorie deficit was the largest deficit participants could get away with before they started losing fat-free mass. Crunching the numbers, it turns out participants could safely lose about 0.54% of their body weight each week. The average BMI in this dataset was around 29, so it's likely that most participants, who were mostly gym noobs, were somewhat higher in body fat. So, for the average lifter, who's a bit leaner and more experienced than participants in this dataset, I think rounding to 0.5% of body weight per week makes sense. You can absolutely lose weight faster than this, but you will probably risk some muscle loss. That being said, losing some muscle isn't the end of the world, since research finds time and time again that regaining lost muscle is much easier than gaining it in the first place. Here are some recommendations, but what does that translate to in terms of calorie target? Here's how to figure it out. First, you'll need to calculate an estimate of your maintenance calories using the Cunningham Total Daily Energy Expenditure Calculator. I'll link it in the description. While most people think you'll need a 3,500 calorie deficit to lose 1 pound of fat, the true number really depends on how much fat-free mass you lose. Because even body fat isn't just fat. It contains proteins, fluids, and more. The energy density of a pound of adipose tissue is actually around 3,750 calories. In the best case scenario we're aiming for, where we lose no muscle, this is the number we'll use. To lose 0.5% of your body weight per week, here's how to calculate your daily calorie deficit. Simply subtract your target deficit from your maintenance calories, and you have your calorie target. Pause the video to read. How do you know when to adjust your calorie intake? The answer is simple: your weigh-ins. If your weight is dropping at the right pace, you don't need to change anything. If it's been a couple weeks and you haven't lost an average of around 0.5% of your body weight per week, drop your calories by 1 to 200, depending on how much weight you did lose. Likewise, if you're losing too fast, bump your calories up by 1 to 200. I only adjust my calorie intake at the most once a week on Sundays. This prevents me from overcorrecting my course. For most people, I recommend setting your calories to at least 30 calories per kilogram of fat-free mass per day. If you're not losing weight fast enough, but decreasing calories would decrease your intake below this amount, I recommend increasing your calorie deficit with more physical activity instead. Weighing yourself consistently and tracking your calories can feel like a chore, but just like a chore, it can lead to greater success. A systematic review on the topic concluded that there was a significant association between self-monitoring and weight loss. Think of calorie counting, tracking steps, and weighing yourself. Besides calories, you also need to pay attention to the so-called macronutrients: protein, carbohydrates, and fats. Protein is arguably the most important macronutrient for muscle mass. But how much protein do you need to maximize muscle retention? That's exactly what a brand new meta-regression by Rafalo and colleagues looked at. In people consistently lifting, for every additional gram of protein per kilogram of body weight consumed, there was a 97% chance of improved fat-free mass retention. Protein may also have metabolic benefits. Remember the thermic effect of feeding? Protein actually burns more calories than carbohydrates or fats during digestion, meaning you can have more food for fewer calories if your diet is high in protein. More muscle retention, more satiety, it's a win-win. For each meal, pick a protein source you enjoy. Here's a table you can use to draw inspiration from. Practically, just set your protein intake as high as you can while still having a reasonable amount of carbohydrate and fat in your diet. But how many carbohydrates would that be? There's a few layers to this question. The first is health. As concerns health, Granum was right. Fruits and vegetables are arguably the most important food groups to include in your diet. In fact, a meta-regression on fruit and vegetable consumption found that individuals consuming 400 grams a day, or 5 servings a day, had 20% lower chances of dying compared to people who didn't consume anything, whereas consuming 10 servings a day resulted in even lower risk. Fruits and vegetables are also excellent sources of fiber and have a low calorie density. You get more food for fewer calories. At the very least, we want enough carbs in a diet to get these important foods in. The second layer is performance. Everybody knows that carbs are the body's primary source of fuel. So, how much do you need as a lifter? Well, you probably don't want to follow the ketogenic diet for the best training performance. A 2022 systematic review on this topic suggested that while some carbs help, there's no compelling evidence for more than 4 grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight boosting performance in the gym. So, I would personally aim for 2 to 4 grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight when losing fat. This will allow you to get fruits and vegetables in easily and have enough fuel for training. There is one more science-based tip about carbs for working out: peri-workout carbs. When you're bulking, peri-workout nutrition usually isn't worth worrying about. During a cut, it might be different. The one thing you want to avoid is going into a workout hungry, as this doesn't seem to lead to the best performance. You also don't want to be so full you get nauseated and throw up. Additionally, there is some early research suggesting that ingesting carbohydrates before a workout could boost performance. The amount of carbohydrates doesn't seem to matter in the context of lifting. Even a piece of fruit seems to be enough. Personally, if I'm feeling hungry going into a workout, I'll have a piece of fruit or a small snack to keep me satiated. There's one more macronutrient we haven't covered: fats. Fats contain the most calories out of any macronutrient at 9 calories per gram. They neither support muscle growth as directly as protein does, nor are fats as good a fuel source for working out as carbs are. Fats support hormone health, just don't go too low. The research suggests around 40 grams for smaller individuals or around 60 for larger ones is a good baseline. So, you know how many calories to eat and how much protein, carbohydrate, and fat to consume. How many meals should you have per day? On the one end, you have intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting involves restricting your feeding times, usually having only 1 or 2 meals a day. The latest research hasn't found a benefit to intermittent fasting in terms of hunger, prospective calorie intake, or weight loss compared to a traditional eating pattern. Instead, the leading researcher on protein intake for muscle hypertrophy, Trommelin, recommends having 4 protein-containing meals per day. This is straightforward, just breakfast, lunch, dinner, and an extra snack either before training or before sleep. Spread these meals out evenly throughout the day. Having the 4th meal as a snack before training can ensure you're not hungry, whereas having a snack shortly before bed can make sure you're building muscle while you're sleeping, especially if your dinner tends to be quite early. This can help retain muscle. After all, when losing weight, most people aren't just looking to lose fat. For a fat loss phase to be successful, we also want to maintain muscle. And that's another area where many people make mistakes. They finish their cut no more muscular than they were when they started the bulk to begin with. This can result in years of wheel spinning. Fortunately, retaining muscle during a cut actually boils down to just a few basic principles. The most powerful way to do this is through a solid lifting routine. Here's the latest recommendations from the research. We'll go variable by variable, giving a recommendation for the minimalist who just wants to maintain muscle, and the maximalist who's trying to continue gaining size and strength during the cut. How many days should you work out? For the minimalist, just 3 workouts a week is likely enough to maintain muscle. For the maximalist, 5 or 6 days a week is a better bet. If you're training 3 days a week, a full body routine is best. If you're training 5 days a week, you could do upper lower, or push-pull legs, upper lower. If you're training 6 days a week, a push-pull leg split can work. For maintenance, 5 to 10 sets per muscle group per week is enough. For growth, aim for at least 10 to 20 sets. Scale based on your goals and recovery. To preserve muscle mass, your sets should be taken pretty close to failure. Especially if you're taking a more minimalist route, I'd probably take most sets between a rep shy of failure and past failure for your last set. To make sure you're not neglecting any muscle groups, I'd pick at least 2 exercises per muscle group across the week, or up to 4 for more complex areas like the back. Different exercises can target slightly different areas of the muscle, both different heads and more proximal versus distal areas. As far as rep ranges go, research suggests 5 to 12 reps per set makes it easiest to push close to failure. You can go higher for variety and completeness, but most of your training should be in this rep range for muscle maintenance. Aim to have some control on the way down, pause in the stretch, and explode up. There is no need to go overboard with the control. As far as how you organize exercises in your workout, the research suggests the order doesn't really matter. I still find it helpful to do compound movements first to maximize total body stimulus. Most people rest too long between sets. We published the most comprehensive study on the topic and found that 1 to 2 minutes of rest is sufficient to maximize muscle growth. Closer to 1 minute for upper body isolation style exercises and closer to 2 minutes for lower body compound mass builders is a great place to start. You might have noticed these recommendations are really similar to training while bulking, with the exception of volume. Indeed, all else being equal, you probably need a bit more training volume in a cut to maintain or gain muscle compared to in a bulk. To gain muscle at maintenance or in a surplus, you only need around 4 weekly sets, but you need a bit more in a deficit. After all, being in a calorie deficit tips the scales in favor of catabolism or muscle loss. Adding a bit more volume helps compensate for this, but the idea that you need to flip your training on its head when bulking versus cutting is a myth. People claim that higher reps are superior for fat loss, but this is also largely incorrect. The increase in calorie expenditure from higher rep training is negligible, and training exclusively with higher reps will make it harder to push close to failure. If you'd like to take all the thinking out of training, consider MyAdapt. MyAdapt is a smart coach in your pocket. It works exactly like a coach does. It will ask you questions like how you're sleeping, whether you're stressed, and whether you're bulking or cutting. It'll build a truly personalized routine for you, fitting your schedule to a T. You can also easily adjust workouts on the fly. You only have half an hour to work out, MyAdapt can replan your workout to work with you in an instant. MyAdapt is launching very soon. Go to myadapt.com now to be notified when it launches. If you sign up on launch, you'll receive a free trial of the app and a lifetime discount. If you followed all the information in this video and you've stuck with it for a few months, I hope you've lost weight. But here comes the most important part. How do you maintain that weight loss? How do you keep the fat off? The answer is simple, but it's really not easy nor sexy. Plan the diet after the diet. Maintain the behaviors that helped you lose weight in the first place. Now, obviously, you don't need to stay in a calorie deficit. That would be unsustainable. That's why I don't recommend reverse dieting after a fat loss phase. You spend more time in a deficit than you need to, and the research simply doesn't support the idea that it will boost your metabolism any more than returning to maintenance straight away. Instead, I utilize the downscaling approach. Let me explain. Let's say that during my cut, I increased my daily steps from 4,000 to 10,000. Instead of returning to 4,000 steps, I'll keep at my habit of going for more walks, but scale it down slightly. I'll aim for 8,000 steps. The same goes for monitoring your calories and weigh-ins. You may not need to continue tracking everything perfectly, but as much as possible, maintain some consistency in this newly acquired habit. The key to maintaining fat loss is simple. Hold on to the habits that helped you lose the weight in the first place. Keep tracking, keep moving, and stay consistent. Just loosen the reins a little bit. Alright, that's it for today. If you learned something, please consider subscribing. There's a lot more coming, like how I personally got shredded without counting calories. If you'd like to support me and get cool gym clothing, consider checking out Rascal Apparel. They make my favorite workout clothes, and I have a discount code you can use for 10% off. Wolf. Have a phenomenal week, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.